Daral greetings everyone. My name is Aeron Ken T Moncada and I will discuss the main method of this game. We establish static final int row, calls, player piece, and computer piece and empty piece for the game. And we create public static char or 2D array. The name is board for the rows and columns or calls. Private static scanner is for users. So private static because it can use for every method new methods. So this is the main method of this game. We create a loop so that the user can enter or play the game or exit the game if he want, and it will display this menu driven play the game, exit the game, and as the user to choose one or two to play and to exit the game, which is case and switch or switch. This, if the users choose one, it will call the play game method. If two, the system will print exiting the game and goodbye. And if the users enter a valid or invalid numbers beyond 2, it will display an invalid choice. Please enter 1 or 2.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Illigan and I will explain the method play game. The play game function is the entry point for the game initializing the board and running a loop where players take turns until the game ends. Yung initialize the board po is siya po yung maglalapag ng board na gagamitin natin. For example po, pinutin natin yung menu na play the game. Next po, player move. Player move is kung saan gusto ng user pipili siya ng column kung saan niya ito ilalagay. Example po is 3. Yung computer move is kung saan mag-move yung computer gamit yung math.random na ginamit. Tapos, ngayon po, lalaroin ko po siya para makita natin kung anong lalabas na output. Ayan po. Nung ako po nanalo, lumabas po is, congratulations, you win. Ito po yung ginamit niya, if check win player piece. Tapos, if yung computer naman po mananalo is, ilalabas niya po yung computer wins. If pag napuno naman po yung box na walang nananalo, lalabas po ay it's a draw. Yun lang.
I'm Lovete Ric. So, I will now be explaining the initialize board. An initialize board po is a method that is responsible for initializing or setting the initial values of the game board. And this 2D array po uses a 2-4 nested loops, which is the rows and columns. And the rows po and columns are fixed values 2, 6, and 7. And 6 po is for rows and 7 is for columns. So this 2D array po is representing the board po that is essentially initializing the 2D array board with empty spaces po. As you can see here po, when we run the code po, and we chooses the one po, it enters po the board with empty spaces po or nothing, or wala pong elements na kahit anong nakalagay. So the empty piece po is responsible or represents po an empty space on the game board, and this ensures po that the game at the beginning of the game po, the all positions po on the board are empty and ready for players to make their move. Ayan po. So, wala po tayong makikita dyan. Pero po, we enter po a number, ayan po, may kakaroon na po siya ng values.
I'm James Andrew Jerusalem, and I will be the presenter that will explain the print board method, which is this part of code. So, ganito po yung nagana. Pagka play the game nyo po, ito po muna yung una niyang initialize yung system.out.println /n tapos yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Kaya po may /n dyan para po dito, para may space po siya dito. Tapos papasok na po tayo sa nested for loop. Una po, int for int row is equals to 0. Row is less than rows. And kapag ito pong variable na row is less than po sa rows, which is ito po. Yung katulad po nung pinaliwanag kanina ni Lovete, ito po yung rows 6 and column 7. Pag daw po yung integer na row is less than 6, mag-i-increment po siya hanggang 6. Ito po yung i-increment niya, yung line na po yan. Tapos dun po sa row 1, papasok po siya sa next na for loop, which is for integer column is equals to 0. I-increment niya po muna yung columns na which is 7. Ito po yung variable na calls is 7. I-increment niya po yan hanggang 7. Pagka na-increment niya na po yan hanggang 7, lilipat na po siya sa, papasok na po siya dito ulit sa for loop na which is rows. And pupunta na po siya sa row 2. Tapos paulit-ulit na po yun. Punta ng column na for loop and increment 7 hanggang sa makarating po siya sa row 7 na yun na po, nag-increment po siya. Tapos i-print niya na po itong line na to. Ito pong system.out.print line na to, para po yan sa spacing po para dito. Kasi po pag binaro po natin yan, ganito po yung magiging output niyan. Ay. Ayan po. Kaya po, kailangan po talaga ng system.out.print line na walang laman. Para po yung code is hindi po magaganyan. Pagtapos po nun, ipiprint niya po tong line na to, which is yung para po siyang design na boundaries po ng UI. Ito po yung nasa ilalim.
Hi, I'm Jaymar M. Morada. I'm the one explaining get user inputs. This method gets an integer inputs from the user. The user loop to continue promoting the user until a valid integer is entered. If the user enters something that is not an integer like this, an invalid message is printed and the user is prompted to begin. Thank you.
My name is Kenneth Lucido and I will be discussing the drop piece method. So, the drop piece method is a key component of the Connect 4 game implementation, responsible for placing a game piece into a specified column on the game board. This method is essential for gameplay progression as it allows players to strategically drop pieces to achieve victory. So, ang functionality ng method na to, first is the loop through rows. Ito po. The method iterates over the rows of the game board, starting from the bottom row hanggang sa pataas. This ensures that the piece is placed at the lowest available position in the specified column. So, next functionality is the check for empty position for each row. For each row, the method checks if the position in the specified column is empty, which is the empty piece na nakalagay dito na may underscore. If an empty position is found, the method proceeds to place the piece in that position. And next is the drop the piece. If an empty position is found, the method assigns the value of the piece parameter to the empty position on the board, effectively dropping the piece into the column. Next is the break. May break dito. Ang use niya is to exit the loop. So, as the piece has been successfully dropped into the specified column.
Greetings everyone, I'm Lloyd Melu and I'm going to demonstrate how this method works. Now we have a method named player move, and inside of it, in the line of 99, we have in column is equal to 0, then semicolon. So, this line, nagde-declare ito ng variable column and initialize it with 0. And itong variable na to is will be used to store the column number where the player wants to drop the piece. Let's go to the do while loop. The do while loop is used to repeatedly ask the player for input until a valid move is entered. And here's how this works. System.out.print, enter the column 1 plus calls plus to drop your piece. This line displays a message asking the player to enter a column number. And for the next one is this column get user input. This line calls the get user input method, which gets the player's input and assign it to the column variable. It is mean that if we input 3 and then the column variable will be updated to 3, and that's how it works. And the next one is the while not is valid move column minus 1. This condition checks if the move entered by the player or a user is valid by calling the isValid method with column minus 1 as the argument. If the move is not valid, and then it will be returned false, and the loop will continue to ask the player for input, and if the move is valid, and the loop will end. And we have a drop piece column minus 1 comma player piece. This line calls the drop piece method, which drops the player's piece into selected column. The arguments are column minus 1 because array indices starts at 0 not 1, and player piece which represent the player piece.
I'm John Paul E. Lumio. I'm the one who explained method computer makes a random move. So the do while loop in the computer move function runs until a valid move is found. So papakita ko sa inyo kung paano magra-run. Example, magbibigay ng random number yung user, which is 3. So yung computer magbibigay siya ng random valid number. So yung ginamit namin ditong computer move is the math random. Meron hanggang 7 lang yung math random namin na ginamit kasi 7 yung fixed number na ginamit namin para sa column. So once nagbigay ng valid number yung computer, magiging valid yung next move. So pwede pang magbigay ng next number yung user.
My name is Angelbert Molinyawe. Let's talk about the check win method. This method is responsible for checking if a player has won the game, and it calls this 3 methods, which is check horizontal, check vertical, and check diagonal. If any of these methods returns true, it means that the player has won the game or the computer has won. However, if these 3 methods return false, it means that the game is draw. Now let's talk about the check horizontal method. Now this method starts with a nested for loop that iterates through each row and columns of the game board, but it only goes up to 4 since a win requires at least 4 consecutive pieces of the same type. And this if statement checks if there are 4 consecutive pieces of the same type horizontally. If the condition is true, it means that the player has won the game horizontally. However, if it returns false, it goes up to to the other methods, which is the vertical or diagonal.
So I will now be explaining the check vertical method po, which has the car piece po or the user's move po. So in the first for loop po, it indicates for the intro is equal to 0, rows is less than in equals rows minus 4. So rows is equals to minus 4 po because pinaka-limit po na pwedeng manalo yung user or po yung computer is 4. Kaya po ang nilagay po natin dyan is minus 4 para po ma-check niya, or ang limit po ng row na limit po na panalo or na piece po na pwedeng i-enter ng user na sunod-sunod ay 4 lang. Kasi po pag tinanggal po natin yung minus 4 ay lalagpas na po siya sa winning point po, which is yung 4. Kapag tinanggal po natin itong 4, ay mawawala po yung limit niya na 4 po. Pag naglagay po ako ng sa 1, ayan po, mag-error po yung pinaka-code. So that minus 4 po is necessary for us to run po the code smoothly. And if naman po, the nested loop naman po is the inside nested loops po. This condition po checks if there is a vertical piece po or sequence po of 4 pieces of the same time, either the player or the computer piece po is pwedeng magkaroon ng parehong vertical na pieces for them to win po. So starting from the current position, row and columns po, and moving downwards, if a sequence is found po, it will indicate po a win. Kunyari po may nakita po tayong pababa kapag nag-run po tayo. Ayan po. So, pinaka-limit lang po nung ating piece is 4. Kaya po, kapag umabot na po siya sa 4, mag-i-stop na po siya dyan. And kapag dahil po nakuha na po natin yung 4 piece po na X po for the player's win, it will print po the congratulations po, you win. And kapag yung return false naman po is for if no vertical win po is detected after inspecting all the possible positions po on the board, the method po returns false, and it will indicate po that there is no vertical win po for the user, and the code po will check for the other methods po. And that's it po for the check vertical.
Check for a win in diagonal direction. We have a method named checkDiagonal, and let's check the function of it. We have a for and for nested loops and if condition. But let's talk about the for loops first. The outer and the inner for loops iterate through each cell of the game board. The loops only go for rows minus 4 and calls minus 4 because they are checking for a sequence of 4 pieces, and going beyond that would result in an out of bounds error. And the second one is this if statement. Let's check this first if statement. The first if statement checks for a win in diagonal direction from top left to bottom right. If the current cell and the next 3 cells to the bottom right or contain the player piece, the method returns true, indicating a win. And the second condition is if the second statement checks for a win in diagonal direction from top right to bottom left, if the cell 3 spaces to the right and the next 3 cells to the bottom left all contain the player's piece, the methods return true. If the method hasn't returned true after checking all the cells, it returns false, indicating that there is no diagonal win.
So my name is Jacob M. Lagman, and I will go over the summarization of the whole project research code. So for the start of the code, we declared some static final int such as rows, columns, player piece, computer piece, entry piece, and set their um, final values which cannot be changed. Then we will go over the main method, which is basically the menu of the whole code. So when you run the code, this is the first thing you will see, the menu event. Number one, play the game, exit the game. And when you choose to play the game, it will go over the board, which is excuse me, this code right here. It will go over the print board, initialize and print the board, which is this part, and it prints the design of the user interface. Then it asks the user to enter a number from 1 to 7, and when you choose to play, it will print your um it will print a number specified to the column, and it will put your move on that specific column. Then after it prints as well as initialize the board, it asks the user for the input, just like I said. Then it drops a piece of the chosen number to the specific location chosen by the board. Then it asks the computer to make a move, so, which is this part right here. It gets a random number from 1 to 7, which was introduced by Mr. Lumio. Then after choosing the a valid move, it prints his move to the random number to the specified column. Next, it will continue to do that until someone wins. Until it checks a vertical win. This is the code for to check if a user or the computer has won. It checks the vertical as well as the horizontal and diagonal win. If when you look at this code, it clearly dictates that for the winner is the player, because there is 4 same X's in row 1, which was when we go back to the top, the player piece is X. So yeah, this code basically checks if someone has won. But when we continue to not win, because it is very difficult to do so and make the computer when we what do you call this, sadya, in simple terms, kung sasadyain natin magpatalo, may chance ang manalo naman yung computer, like so. In column 7, there is 4 letter O's, which is the computer piece, although it's also vertical. This code basically checks if the computer or the user has won. After declaring a winner, sorry for the short ads, but there is also a draw function, although I cannot show you due to the sheer fact that it is very difficult to get a draw. If in case that the user as well as the computer has no 4 continuous slots, it will print a draw function. After declaring a winner, the code basically restarts to the main method, and as the which is the menu driven code, and ask the user to play again or exit the game. But when you don't choose to play the game as but choose the number 2, which is exit the game, you will get a message which is exiting the game and goodbye. Uh, it will terminate the program. So basically that is all for the summarization of the code, and thank you very much for listening to our short video, and thank you and goodbye.